Today, we're going to take a look at 5 great Adrien Brody performances that you may not have heard of, but are no less great. Let's get into it. So we're going to start with King of the Hill from 1993. It was directed by Steven Soderbergh, who you may have heard of. He's done a few things. It stars Jesse Bradford, and it's basically about a young man who's making his way through the Great Depression. His father, played by Jeroen Krabbe, is basically completely lacking any kind of parental instinct. He's just so useless. So Adrien's character, Lester, is kind of an older brother figure to Aaron, a mentor. Lester's entrance into the film is probably one of my top 10 favorite Adrien moments. The way it's shot is just so dramatic. Like here comes our hero, you know. It's like introducing, hey, watch this kid. He's going to be a movie star, you know. Reportedly, King of the Hill is where Wes Anderson first heard of Adrien. So Adrien doesn't have a ton of screen time as Lester, but when he's there, it's quite memorable. And like I said, it's kind of the first inkling you have of what he would become, you know. It's fun to see. So I really think that's an important one. And next up we have Restaurant from 1998, which was directed by Eric Bross, who incidentally follows me on Instagram. So that's my little claim to fame there. So as you may have guessed by the title, Restaurant is about people who work in a restaurant and basically what they want to do with their lives. And, you know, the restaurant's basically their day jobs. So Adrien's character, Chris, is working at the restaurant while he's trying to get a play that he wrote produced. And it shows the struggles he goes through with that, you know, the director and the casting and this and that. And he meets Janine, who starts working there. Elise Neal plays her, and she's wonderful too. And they kind of embark on a romance, but it's not an easy one. It's not an easy road. Restaurant tackles a lot. It tackles racism and alcoholism, touches on some violence, so it covers a lot, but it's not preachy or heavy-handed. I think it's still an enjoyable watch, especially the guys who work in the kitchen. Their banter together is really great. You have David Moscow in there, Malcolm Jamal Warner, Jesse L. Martin from Law & Order and Rent. You know, there's a lot of lighter moments too. It's not depressing, so at least not in my opinion. So interestingly enough, Lauryn Hill appears in both King of the Hill and Restaurant. So kind of an interesting thread there. So if you're interested in seeing Restaurant, it is actually streaming on Amazon Prime right now, I noticed. So check that out. Next up we have Dummy from 2002. It was directed by Greg Pritikin. It stars Adrien and Vera Farmiga, Mila Jovovich. His parents are played by Ron Liebman and Jessica Walter, who were married in real life, so that's kind of a fun dynamic to see, and they're both fantastic, of course, as always. And Ileana Douglas, speaking of good as always, she plays Adrien's sister, and it's funny because they kind of do resemble each other. I never really thought about it, so yeah, that was good casting there. So our lead, Steven, played by Adrien, finds himself unemployed, and he goes to see a counselor, and she's asking him, you know, what do you want to do with your life or whatever, and he just sort of blurts out ventriloquism. So she actually helps him find work as a ventriloquist. So he starts lessons, and he starts taking his ventriloquist dummy with him everywhere. It sort of becomes an extension of him. So Adrien, being the method actor he is, he actually learned ventriloquism and puppetry, and he does a pretty good job at it. Adrien's characters tend to be, you know, charismatic, and they have a swagger, you know, and Steven lacks swagger. So it's really interesting to see. That's why I put this on the list, because Steven's the kind of character that you would not expect from him. So check it out. Next up is Hollywoodland from 2006. You may have heard of that one. It was more of a well-known one, but I put it on this list anyway because, you know, it's not the Brutalist or the Pianist or a Wes Anderson film. So it was directed by Alan Coulter, who mostly works in television, which is interesting because Hollywoodland is actually about a television actor, George Reeves, who played Superman. It's about his death and the investigation into it. Adrien plays a detective named Louis Simo, who was hired by George Reeves' mother, played by Lois Smith, to basically prove that George Reeves did not die by suicide, that it was suspicious. So Adrien's character is not all that interested in helping, but he really needs the money, and he just kind of humors her at first. But then he starts to really care about it, and he goes through a lot trying to find out the truth. And he's stopped a lot along the way, or people try to stop him along the way, because he gets a little too close to finding out the truth about a lot of people in Hollywood. So it's sort of a mixture of fiction, in fact, you know, loosely based on real events, I would say. Besides Adrien, Hollywoodland stars Ben Affleck, Diane Lane, Bob Hoskins, Jeffrey DeMunn, Robin Tunney, and Lois Smith, as I mentioned. I think Hollywoodland is underrated. Kind of flew under the radar a little bit, and I think it deserves another look. And next we have Detachment. Detachment came out in 2011 and was directed by Tony Kaye, who did American History X. So you probably already know it's a pretty heavy film. Detachment is one of those performances that should have gotten Adrien another Oscar. Unfortunately, it largely was ignored, which is a shame because it's really a powerful film. It's about teachers and the struggles they go through. So as the title implies, Adrien's character Henry is a little bit detached. Being a substitute teacher, he likes that life where he can just sort of pick up and move on. Beyond Adrien's amazing performance that should have won another Oscar, as I said, this cast is very stacked. James Caan is in there, Lucy Liu, Bryan Cranston, Marcia Gay Harden, Christina Hendricks. It goes on and on. If I were to rank these rather than going in chronological order, I think Detachment would be number one. It's such a good performance. It's really a shame that not a lot of people have seen Detachment, so I highly recommend that you look for it. So if you watch any of these lesser known great performances by Adrien Brody, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions. Take 107. Okay, charisma. Riz, as the young people would say. I'm 46. Riz doesn't sound right coming out of me.